back to the Cardsmiths. Max here. So it's been a while since we've posted a new video on the channel, and there has been a lot that has happened since our last video went up in the world of Legend of the Five Rings and the L5R LCG. And yeah, definitely some disappointing news. Yeah, I wanted to take some time to think about it and digest it, and before making this video, and even this video is just going to be mostly informational. It's just going to be going over the article regarding end of the game, what lead developer Tyler Parrott and the lead story Katrina Strander have to say, and then yeah, I'm gonna make a future video that's really gonna be delving into all my own thoughts on what has happened, and I guess I haven't even addressed that. So I wanted to make this video for all those of you who don't know. Many of you following the channel perhaps already do, but there may be some of you that don't know this, but the Fantasy Flight Games has announced the end of the Legend of the Five Rings living card game. That occurred, this article is from the 17th of February 2021, so yeah, like I said, well, actually, it was a few weeks ago. And yeah, it's definitely a surprise, even though the game wasn't necessarily that popular compared to some of their previous titles, Game of Thrones, Netrunner. There are still a lot of people who play this game. It's their only, or was their only, ongoing competitive LCG. Hal and I thought that was reason alone that it would at least last until they announced a new one, was our assumption. Anyways, let's get into the article here. So this has been canceled. What this means is that following the end of this cycle 5, the Temptation cycle, and then the release of a final premium expansion under Fu Lang's Shadow, which I'll cover in an upcoming video. I'll go over the article announcing that expansion, what it entails. I think it's a great expansion. It's somewhat marred by the disappointing news of this, but I do think that expansion looks incredible. It adds solo, co-op play, challenge play, which, having played the challenge, not the dark side one, but the light side challenge deck of the Star Wars LCG, really fun mode to play. I like the addition of co-op and solo variants. I think they make the game a lot more accessible to casual players. That's awesome. I think that expansion's great. If anything, it's disappointing it didn't come earlier, but that being said, it fits in really well with the ongoing story coming in at the point it is now in regards to the Legend of the Five Rings story that goes along with the card game. So it fits the narrative well in terms of its release time. And yeah, so that will be the final expansion for the game. That's going to come out in around May. Like I said, I'll cover that in a future video, but yeah, this also means there will be no further organized play for the game. There is an announcement regarding a potential Final World Championship. Again, like the Under Fu Lang's Shadow premium expansion, I'll cover that article in a future video, but I am certainly skeptical in regards to that article. I've listened to podcasts of other players of the game talk, and they share my reservations about that article. So yeah, I'll cover that in a future video. If that's something that's of interest to you, definitely keep an eye out for that one to hit the channel. And yeah, let's just dive right into this now. I've been going on for long enough. So the article's titled "The Future of a Legend. Where does the path lead from here?" So you read that, and it's not screaming the game is canceled. Where does the path lead? It's not the most foreboding article title. It doesn't really indicate the end of the game's coming. They're softening the blow here, but really just not addressing the disappointment people are gonna have over this. Anyways, um, diving into the article, Legend of the Five Rings. So here, in the fall of 2015, Fantasy Flight Games first announced that it acquired the rights to Legend of the Five Rings, a long-standing card game that has invited thousands of players to play as samurai in the Emerald Empire of Rokugan. 2 years later, the next iteration of Legend of the Five Rings, the card game, was announced, reimagining the classic collectible card game as a living card game. Over the subsequent years, Legend of the Five Rings, the card game, grew and unfolded, telling a gripping story and stimulating players' imaginations with complex and interwoven gameplay. The way the story was interwoven with the game and was influenced by events in organized play, I really think is unparalleled with how they did that with L5R. This is makes this exceptionally disappointing in regards to just not being able to participate in that after COVID. That was something which would have been really cool to do. So yeah. Anyway, I'll keep going here. Save most of my thoughts and feelings on this for a future video, where I'll dive into why I don't think the game had to be canceled, what could have been done to keep it going, ideas for better entry points for new players, things that they could have done, creativity that just wasn't harnessed, their innovation which wasn't there on the part of FFG, but really I think my criticisms are really levied towards Asmodee, because I think they're really the ones behind most of the decisions here. At least that's my impression of it, and I believe that to be the case. Anyway, I'll keep going here. With 5 cycles of Dynasty packs, 7 clan packs, and 3 premium expansions, including the upcoming Under Fu Length's Shadow, as I previously mentioned, we had the chance to build and explore this universe with all of you. However, as much as we have loved creating and developing this card game, the time has come to announce the completion of Legend of the Five Rings, the card game, with other games and stories to look forward to in the future. With the release of Under Fu Length's Shadow, Legend of the Five Rings, the card game, will be complete. Introducing new cards for every great clan and the chance to battle the Shadowlands in cooperative or challenge deck variants, this final premium expansion marks a fitting capstone to this living card game. I don't disagree with that. I think it's a fitting final box. I don't think that it had to be the final box, and I really don't think that it did. I think this game could have kept going. What's more, Legend of the Five Ring, I think there were lots of things they could have done that they chose not to, and they didn't have the care to try to keep making this game. What's more, Legend of the Five Rings, the card game, is drawing to a close. What's more, Legend of the Five Rings, the card game, is drawing to a close. The vibrant and immersive world of Legend of the Five Rings will continue to be explored with other exciting games currently in development. So, I've heard speculation on this, what people think these games might be. I've heard talk of a potential. I mean, this is all purely fan speculation, purely people who are interested in the universe that are wondering what these next games could be. I've seen speculation of a miniatures game. FFG has the Star Wars Legion miniatures game, which I'm not sure how well it does. I assume it does fairly well based on the steady stream of products I see for it. It's Star Wars, part of their Star Wars license, so Star Wars being a very popular IP. Star Wars Legion. They already have a miniatures game, I believe. X-Wing as well, actually, which I know X-Wing has been really popular over the years, and yeah, with a lot of their miniatures department was ended, and it all got shifted to another studio, I believe, and a lot of people lost their jobs in that, and I've certainly heard a lot of criticism of Asmodee about that. Yeah. So, anyway, just trying to hone back in on L5R here. That could potentially be a miniatures game that would be with that other studio then. as FFG, miniatures games were shifted to another studio. It's possible that it could be a cooperative LCG. Um, I've seen speculation of that. Arkham Horror and Marvel Champions are um, two. Well, really, they're two most popular card games, and even the Lord of the Rings LCG. I believe it just recently ended, or not even officially ended. I don't believe. I believe it's been put on pause, so there could potentially be eventually be future products again. I don't know if there will, but I think they've left the door open for that to be possible. And like the Lord of the Rings LCGs enjoyed an immensely long lifespan. So yeah, they're cooperative games historically and currently do exceptionally well. I've heard talk that like people think this is what FFG's good at. They're good at these cooperative LCGs. I think that's true. I think they are. I've played Lord of the Rings. I think maybe once, like a really long time ago. So I can't speak to that. I can't speak to Champions, which I've never played. I've heard good things about both those games. I have played Arkham Horror. It's a great game. I really enjoy it. I'd like to play some more Arkham. But yeah, they are good at that. And yeah, I wonder if that's a possibility. I could see that being something they do. There's been a lot of talk about the advantage of cooperative games, but again, all this being said, I think that this competitive LCG could have kept going. There were a lot of steps and choices they could have made to try to keep it going. There were a lot of there wasn't that innovation there to try new things, put out better entry points for people to get into the LCG, adding more clans. Like there's so much that could have been done, and that's what's really disappointing that wasn't even attempted. There just wasn't. It's just like purely financially Asmodee. Well, weren't a part of the conversations in which the game was decided to end, but I believe it's purely, my assumption is purely financially, as in this game isn't making as much money as if we can and put out a new one that can make more money. The really frustrating part is I'm sure this game was still earning them somewhat of a profit. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I would assume that they were still making some money off this game, and coming down to them just wanting more, and it's frustrating. Anyways, I'm gonna keep going here. I mean, yeah, it's really like the especially frustrating part is then it's kind of just like, oh, all right, on to the next thing, on to the next game. And it's like, what about all the people who bought your game, bought into this game, are really passionate about it, have supported your game the whole way through, and then you pull the rug out from under all those people? And we've seen this with essentially all the competitive LCGs over the years. Netrunner, I don't believe was their fault. From what I understand about the end of Netrunner and how popular I know that Netrunner was, I believe that was that Netrunner was lost due to a licensing agreement with Wizards of the Coast. So I won't fault them on that one. And Conquest as well. I know Games Workshop just took that license away. So I'll certainly give them a pass on Netrunner and Conquest, as disappointing as the end of those games were for people who really love them. I've played both of them, both fun games. Personally, I prefer Netrunner. Netrunner's great. Conquest is fun as well, but yeah, Netrunner being my preference between those two. Really great game. So yeah, like that's really disappointing that couldn't keep going. It got the revised core set. It was getting its legs back under itself again, which really shows like what a revised core set and a really concerted effort to get new players into the game can do for a game. And Netrunner was already a more popular game than L5R, so that was a bit easier. But there were steps there that could have been taken. Anyway, I'm gonna get back into the article here. Yeah, so with other exciting games currently in development, players will discover even more opportunities to interact with the story of Legend of the Five Rings through these other games. In the meantime, while it is too early to go into details on those games now, you can keep up with the world of Rokugan through Legend of the Five Rings role-playing from Edge and novels from Aconite Books. So, yeah, they've got the exclamation mark here. They're acting like, oh, like the game's over, but like, well, all right, well, whatever. You go check out the novels from Aconite Books. And it's like, I mean, I've purchased Poison River. It looks, I've heard actually, well, not actually. Yeah, I say that in the disappointment of the game being canceled, but I've seen really good reviews on Poison River. It looks really good. I'm excited to read that. I'm a big fan of the fiction for this game. I didn't actually really follow along with it, but I've really been. I've started listening to the Table Is Yours podcast, excellent podcast where they read off the official story fiction from the game. Starting with the core set, and I believe they go all the way through. So yeah, excellent podcast. You should certainly check out The Table Is Yours. And I've been getting into that. The fiction's great, and it's just disappointing. Like the game's canceled, and it's like, like all right, go. You got the book still and everything. It's like, well, it. Like what about the card game? Like what about the LCG here? Like there's just like so much potential. There's so much that could have been done. It's such a good game, and yeah, with the Jade Edict and the removing of the rally cards, which yeah, if you're listening, you may be like, what, and like what's going on, and that's something that I'll cover in a future video. But yeah, I really think that was great for the game. I know some people who haven't played in quite a while, getting back into it because of that, trying it out at least again. And yeah, just yeah, very disappointing. So then it says, as Legend of the Five Rings, the card game, draws to a close, organized play for the game is also coming to an end. You can find further information on the end of Legend of the Five Rings, the card game, organized play here. This will be a future video, should be pretty short. I'll go over that, but to sum it up, basically they say, actually no, I'm just going to focus on this, keep going, save that for a future video. For more details and thoughts on the end of Legend of the Five Rings, the card game, and the climax of the story, read on to hear lead developer Tyler Parrott and head of story Katrina Ostrander. So here we go, from lead developer Tyler Parrott. Of all the games I played, I have to admit that few have a community of fans as passionate and tightly knit as Legend of the Five Rings players. When I was first getting into the game just before the Kiku Matsuri event at Gen Con 2017, I vaguely knew that the long-running card game had a passionate player base, but I didn't have a frame of reference for what that would look like. Over the next couple of years, I got to witness clan-loyal rivalries, worldwide team tournaments, regular cosplay competitions, a cooking contest, and countless hours of media that players created for each other, including audiobook readings of our entire web fiction library. I was actually just talking about that. I forgot it was mentioned in the article here. The Table Is Yours podcast. Yeah, go check it out if you're interested in the fiction and you enjoy podcasts. It's a great way to just work your way through it. I know there's a lot of fiction out there, so if you're someone who doesn't have as much time on your hands and you enjoy podcasts, listening to them while you're doing like other things, yeah, that's a great way to get into the fiction. The legacy of Legend of the Five Rings has always been one of player investment, whether through story choices, role selection, RIP, which there used to be the role selection for the game in regards to the elemental roles. They did away with that to free up a lot more deck building creativity, which I think that is a great choice that they made in regards to that. Or community organized events. The players of this game have always been a core element of the game's magic. I cannot think of a community that would be better suited for taking stewardship of the game we have made together. Ultimately, the game's greatest strength, its intricate complexity of decisions, proved to be a barrier to its success in the gaming marketplace of the late 2010s. Well, that is some of the reason for it not being as popular as some other games. I personally think that's a huge strength of L5R. It's offering a really unique experience with unparalleled strategic depth. And I think that's the game's greatest strength. I think there's room for a game like that to exist. There were things they could have done to make the game more accessible for new players. The biggest thing, better entry points for new players. As an LCG, it can become harder for a new player to get in once it's a little farther into down the road, and there's a lot of products they would have to buy to get caught up. If you give them better entry points, like complete decks they can just buy to get in and get playing. I'll talk more about that in the future video. And then also, like, with Skirmish, they introduced Skirmish last year right around the onset of the pandemic, and like that could have been a great way for getting lots of new players involved in the game. Like, market Skirmish better. Also, it's been the pandemic. There hasn't been the opportunity for Skirmish to even really get out and get into game stores and try to grow this game. There hasn't really been that opportunity at all. So it's disappointing that wasn't given a chance. Skirmish is a great way to get new players involved in the game, and I think it wasn't really successful in doing that. I don't think it was given a fair opportunity to be. It's been the pandemic since it's been released. So again, another thing that's really disappointing about this is that you introduced Skirmish, and then it wasn't given the opportunity to really flourish in the community, I don't think. I'm not saying that alone would have suddenly made the game insanely popular, but I think it's good building blocks, and you're making it more accessible for new players. You just build on that, and you can build some momentum. So along with other things, like I said, more accessible entry points, Skirmish, there's lots of things that could be done. I'll talk more about that in a future video. I have a lot of ideas and thoughts written up on that. I'll try to get all that into a future video. So just keep working our way through this here. I cannot think of a community that would be better suited for taking stewardship of the game we have made together. If you are interested in the competitive scene of the game, that's something else that can be covered in a future video, is the Jade Council, which is being assembled, similar to, if you're familiar with the Nisei group and Netrunner, which is continuing the competitive scene of that community's game past the cancellation of the Netrunner LCG. They're looking to do something similar to Nisei, which is cool. Which is great for the game. So however, I struggle to think of many other games with such satisfying strategic depth or with such beautiful thematic resonance. The Legend of the Five Rings card game lets you tell an entire story of two clans clashing for dominance, with a rotating cast of characters coming and going as time passes inexorably onward. No action is without consequence, resulting in a network of interdependent resources that is both a challenge and a joy to manage. I truly enjoyed getting to work on this game, both as its spokesperson and its designer. The game's deep mechanics and rich theme allow for some very fun card designs. While I am sad I no longer have the opportunity to design new content for the game, and perhaps I'll one day get to share some of the mechanics and themes I didn't get to create, I'm excited to see what the community comes up with. After all, Legend of the Five Rings, the card game, may not be in development by Fantasy Flight Games anymore, but the game still exists, is still fun to play, and has a passionate community of players who can certainly keep shaping it into exactly what they want it to be. And yes, that's true, but when an LCG like this dies, typically there are a lot of players that are lost in that process, and understandably so. The game's no longer being supported by Fantasy Flight Games. You don't have that OP support. I know Nisei is running events now. It took them a while to get off the ground and get running with that, so that's great to see that they are. But yeah, I hope the Jade Council is able to have that same success. But it certainly it hurts, and it does make a difference when a game like this is no longer being officially supported by the company which created like Fantasy Flight Games here. So yeah, it definitely it makes a difference, and this is really disappointing because it's really disappointing. It's no longer being supported by FFG, like official FFG run tournaments with their organized play, etc. It's really too bad. And then I mean, another thing, one of the many great aspects of playing an LCG is that continuing release of cards, that the game's constantly shifting and evolving, and you got to be creative, and you don't have to, but you have the opportunity to be creative, pursue new ideas, new decks, new combinations of cards, find clever new tactics, strategies. And that's what's really incredible about an LCG, is just the level of depth that they have, how deeply you can dive into one that you find really fun and you really enjoy. And it's great, and it hurts to not have new cards being released for the game and having that opportunity to explore new decks, new ideas, new strategies, which you still do with the collection you have. And there are a lot of cards released, and there's certainly room for that. But at the same time, for example, with the Star Wars LCG, Hell and I, having played that for years, and then the game ends, and there comes a point where you have a certain X number of decks which are the really most optimal, best decks you can play, and then you can certainly play lots of other different decks, but you kind of know that those ones are out there, and there's only so many of them. Especially with Star Wars, with the objective set system, there's not even it's where essentially cards come in like blocks of 6, including an objective card. So if you take that objective set, you have to take all the cards that come in it. So there's not even quite as much room for like, oh, I'm gonna switch 1 or 2 cards out here and try this. So L5R, there's gonna be a bit more of that, and well, a lot more of that, but and yeah, there'll certainly still be tons of decks and things to explore, but it's disappointing there won't be new cards coming out, and that are constantly having you question whether there's a better deck out there, or just something new to try, or a cool meta deck that people won't expect that might be great in a certain matchup, or oh, now this other clan got this new card that I need to be prepared for, I have to adjust. And yeah, that's what's really cool, and one of the many things that's really cool and exciting about an LCG. So I know the group is planning on creating their own cards, but yeah, it'll certainly be a while before that gets up and running. And again, it's not the same as being able to just head off to your local game store and purchase the latest Dynasty pack. It's not going to be the same. So really disappointing. I know this is not the end of Legend of the Five Rings, the card game. It has had a fantastic run, and I believe it still has a bright future. So getting on into the section here from Katrina Ostrander, head of story. At first, it was daunting to approach a full continuity reboot for a setting with as long as a history as Legend of the Five Rings. Although I had been playing the RPG since the launch of the 4th edition, I hadn't been there for the early stories of Imperial Edition or epic tournaments like the Second Day of Thunder. The characters whose journeys we would be retreading were new to me, but not to the fans, yet we knew we couldn't rely on nostalgia if we wanted to appeal to a new audience. In revisiting characters such as Bayushi Shoju, Akodo Toturi, and Doji Hotari, now Doji Hotaru, we tried to reimagine them in ways both fresh and familiar. The bulk of that character work fell to the individual authors, and the story would not have been so successful were it not for their amazing talents. Often, Tyler and I would have only the smallest seed of a story to begin with, which the writer would nurture and grow into something that both surprised and delighted us. They would often help us interpret the ramifications of the story choices decided by you, the fans, at tournaments through organized play and as part of convention modules for the role playing games. So yeah, again, a really really cool and quite unique thing about this game was just the way in which and this follows from the CCG. I've heard the L5R CCG was really even more so heavily influenced by the story, but I heard sometimes uh, that could potentially lead to the story not being quite as tight, kind of. So here there weren't as it wasn't quite as influenced by the players, but there was like that influence there, which is really cool and exciting. You get to participate in events and shape the story of Rokugan, and that's just something so awesome about this game and so cool. So it's yeah, it's upsetting to have lost that. And yeah, I didn't know that it's part of convention modules for the role playing game as well. So yeah, that's really cool. That had story influence as well. I think about how differently the story might have played out if at the inaugural Kikumatsuri tournament the practice of name magic Meishodo had been banned by the Emperor. To regulate and stamp out an entire magical practice likely would have required the resurrection of the office of the Jade Champion, Anuichi Shihai, who would not have been brought to the capital to instruct the Spoon family in its methods. Had Matsu Suko not freed Doji Kwanin in search for evidence of his father's murder, he would not have come to suspect his sister's forbidden love, and perhaps Prince Satori would have met with a different fate. Bayushi Kachiko and Doji Hitaru might not have reunited for this last arc of story were it not for the Scorpion's claim on Toshi Rambo Kotai season, and the Crane hold on Kyoto Castle, wedding at Kyoto Castle Gen Con 2018, and the circumstances surrounding the opening of the Black Scroll would have been much different were it not for the Yogo family's possession of Kanshu Kote season, and the escape of Lady Atsuko, the Highwayman, Gen Con 2019. So yeah, just lots of examples there of how the game and the story were so interwoven, because the organized play events of the game shaped the story, but then the story also shaped the game, where because Meishodo wasn't banned, then we continue to get all these cool Meishodo cards for the Unicorn Clan. And yeah, seeing that interplay between game and story and how interwoven they are and how the story is then affecting cards which are released in the game is just so cool. There are times where I wish we could have done more to involve the player base, especially after losing a year of events to the COVID-19 pandemic, but that doesn't change the fact that you guided the story to this point. Something I will say of that, there's a really cool new thing, which is the Battle of Cherry Blossom Stowe, which is the kind of final farewell for the game from FFG. And yeah, it's player involved. You can vote on matchups between different personalities in Rokugan and see who will be the one who kind of fights their way to face the Shadowlands and Akuma no Oni, which is the massive threat emerging against Rokugan, which all of Rokugan might fall to. So that's something I also plan on covering in a video. That's really cool. If you're just a casual player playing at home, like this vote's open to anyone. You can just do it through the FFG website. So this is actually a really accessible way for anyone who enjoys the game in any capacity, whether it be the role-playing game, the LCG, competitive player, casual player, someone who's just interested in the story, even who's read the books, someone who's bought in a course and played. Like, anyone can participate in this, and I really encourage you to, if you're listening to this video, yeah, I encourage you to go check that out. It's really cool. I'll make a video even covering that, so keep an eye out for that. The votes have already started, so you can find it on the Fantasy Flight Games website, but I plan on making a video to cover it as well. But yeah, I bring that up because something like that's something that I wish there had been more player involved kind of voting and stories over the course of the past year. But I know there was one a while back, which was like a you decide kind of story where you got to make choices and then you could submit your results and affect the story. So that was cool. I do wish there had been more of that. But anyway, I'll keep going here. As the flap of a butterfly's wing can become a hurricane, what might have seemed like small choices had a powerful impact on the way this legend unfolded. It was delightful hearing speculation about where the story would go next, who would live or die, and who would rise to become Rokugan's heroes or fall to villainy before seeing how your choices fulfilled or thwarted those characters' fates. While I began working on the Legend of the Five Rings story after Fantasy Flight acquired it in 2015, the previous continuity editor told me that, similarly to the swords passed down through the families of the great clans, we are only temporary stewards of the story. I am grateful for the opportunity to have helped tell stories in this world for as long as I was able to, and I am confident that great stories will continue to be told in this world from Aconite books through the continuing role-playing game and other games in the future. But it's not over yet. Beginning on March 1st, Fantasy Flight Games will celebrate the culmination of the Scorpion Clan coup arc with the Battle of Cherry Blossom Snow, a series of story choices and fiction that will be open to the entire community. This is what I was just talking about a minute ago. Your decisions will guide the samurai of the great clans in confronting the evil that the chaos of the coup allowed to rise. Stay tuned to our website for updates and how to find out how to participate and determine the fate of the Emerald Empire. So, yeah, again, covering that in a future video. And yeah, that brings us to the end of the article. So I'm just gonna wrap it up here. Try to not have this video be too long, but I do plan on making more covering the end of the game, especially that one that's my thoughts and things that could have been done differently. I know I ended up I wasn't really planning to, but I ended up getting into that to some capacity here, but looking for a longer video and just all my ideas and thoughts, things that could have been done, disappointment over the cancellation, and really just my thoughts and feelings about the news. So yeah, stay tuned for that. I hope this video was useful, was informative, and yeah, let me know what your thoughts are about the cancellation of the game. Really disappointing news. Let me know what you think, and yeah, just feel free to join the discussion in the comments down below. If you made it to the end of the video here, thanks for watching. Hit like, hit subscribe if you wanna catch all our future content, and yeah, thank you for watching. Until next time, take care.